Hello, folks. Hope you're doing well today. I'm going to continue on with developing my FAQ web part where we left off the last time. Let me go ahead and get my development environment kicked off by running serve. This is going to run my development node server, which will connect into my SharePoint server. And we'll go from there. Just give it a moment to do that. I guess a little recap. A little recap on what we were working on before. We were working on the FAQ designed with the images. Basically, the concept is we want to have an image that shows up while the question is visible, but then when the user hovers over that question, they can then see the question's answer itself. So the objective is to we have this scenario here where you have a question or perhaps something that you want to show, and then the only difference with mine is I don't want to put this button here. I just want the concept to be that you see the question and then you hover over it, kind of like how some giant tiles would look like. So right now what we have is we go to our topics, we add the topics, and we go to preview. Right now we just see the questions. And so what happens is when the user hovers over these, not only will it give us that highlight, but then it'll show us the actual question itself. Now, we've tested the attachments yesterday. We were able to add attachments. Like for instance, this one, we can see that I added this image. But now the objective is to get that image and display it on the card. To do that, I'm going to do a quick test to see the retrieval of an item from the API. So let's do that. So await sp.web.list.getByTeTitle. And if you're wondering what this is the SP editor, editor Chrome extension. Install this on your browser if you have the ability to do so. It's really helpful. I really like this because it allows you to open the console and actually write some code in there to get, without having to writing on your application and do console logs to get troubleshooting, etc. You can just type it in here and it'll retrieve the information for you. So in my case, I want to get things from the FAQ list, and we're just going to get the items, and let's console log the items. All right, so if I open the console tray, was a drawer. Oh, this is different. I've never seen it do this. Let's go back to SharePoint. Well, what happened? Oh, anyway, I don't need, it's okay. Let's clear this out. I've never seen that. What did I click on? I guess it must have been an update. Is there a way to put it underneath? I'm not sure. I'll get back to that. So this is going to show me my 7 items. I'm going to try to see what it returns for the item that has an attachment, which I believe it's this one. It's long established. It's this one right here. So attachment, it says false. The question we're looking for is the one that has an attachment. What is the best way to develop things in the web? So let's look at the title on this one. Why do we use it? That's not it. Is development fun? That's not it. What is the best way to add a question? Nope, that's not it either. I think it's this one because attachment is set to true. So what is the best way to develop things in the web? So now what we have to do is retrieve the attachment. And I believe to do that, let's go look at the documentation real quick. Get the PNP list attachments. Item, get by title, get it by ID. Item.attachments. Let's see what this returns. So let's go back to the code. And what we're gonna do is, gosh, I just need to put this on a separate page so it doesn't confuse me. All right, so attachments, await. Okay, so let's loop through the items. For item of items. Oh, we have to make sure that this is a const. And then on this one, if item dot attachments, meaning if the item has an attachment, then we're going to get the attachment. Item.attachment files. And let's see what this returns. Attachment files is not a function. Let's go back to the documentation. Here. Get attachments, get an item by ID, attachment files. But it's saying attachment files is not a function. Why? Item with attachment equals await sp.web.list get by title. And let's parameterize the title name. So we can go in here and say const list name. It's going to be this. Put it up here. What is the problem? And we can just put this in here. That way we don't have to write it twice. And here, get by title, this name, items.get by ID, and that's going to be item.id. And now, item with attachment. Let's see if this doesn't give us an error. Well, it doesn't even do anything now. Is there an error? Oh. There we go. It's still saying attachment files is not a function. Interesting. Because we're doing exactly what the documentation tells us to do. Item, get by title, get by ID. Add an attachment, read attachment content, update attachment, delete attachment, recycle. Oh boy. What's the problem? We have presets all. Let's go to our code and just give it a shot. So where are we? Our PMPJS config. So we already have SP attachments on there. Items, list, webs. Yep. So now let's go to the FAQ item API. FAQ item or FAQ API. So on our get all of our items, it's going to return the items. I think what we can do is once we have all of our items, we can determine at the form level if there's an attachment, and then if there's an attachment, because it would be true, then we could retrieve the attachment by ID. So let's add a function here. Get attachment by FAQ item ID. No, what we're gonna do is we're going to get our attachments by doing this. Let's copy this in here. Const SP, get SP. All right. And then get by title, get by ID. And this is going to be the FAQ item ID. Yep. Const attachments. And then we're going to return the attachments. If it's an error, we're going to throw an error. And then we're going to close our function. So what this is going to do is it's going to, when the form loads, if there's no point in loading attachments. Well, actually, now that I think about it, we do have to add the attachment on there. The problem that I have is that I'm batching my call to get my items, and I don't think that we can do so. I guess we can do it this way. Go in here and say for all the items. Gosh, this is like really bad. I'm trying to think of the architecture, because if we tell it to go ahead and retrieve all the items with the attachments from the get-go, the problem that we're gonna have is if this grows to be exponential, we always want to think of efficiency. And if we have the FAQs coming in with every single one of these question answer items, we want to check if there is an attachment and then have it download the attachment. I think that actually now that I no, I think I'm right doing it this way. So what I'm gonna from an architecture standpoint, what's gonna happen is we're only gonna get the attachments is if it's when we open the form. Then we can say if we're opening the form, we can check if that item has an attachment. And then when we get to the preview section on the image layout, we only retrieve the attachment if the user is using the image layout, which is beneficial because that would mean if we have tab layout, accordion layout, list layout, it doesn't matter if it has a picture, it won't retrieve it because it doesn't need it. It's only going to need it when we retrieve it for the image layout. So in this scenario, it's perfect because now we can target the card itself and tell the card, okay, only when you're showing it in this way, the image layout, only then retrieve the attachment because we need it to show it on the card. If we don't need it, then don't download it, because they could very well say, you know what, I don't need an image layout today. I just or on this page, I just want it to be a simple list layout. Then it would be kind of counterintuitive to retrieve the attachment given the fact that we don't need it. So this is a perfect way to do that. So now we have to create a hook. Let's create a new folder, and it's going to be called attachments hook. And in this attachment hook, we're going to create a new file. Use attachments. Use attachments by ID. And here we're going to do the same thing that we do for all of our other hooks, like for instance, use FAQ items, except the difference is that actually we need to add a URL string const FAQ attachments, FAQ attachments by FAQ ID URL. Yep, because this is what we're gonna need for our SWR hook. So now that we have this, let's create our SWR hook, which is this one right here. So similar to how we have this, we're gonna paste this in here, but instead of this one, we're gonna get the FAQ items by ID URL. And then we're gonna use attachments by ID. We're gonna pass the FAQ item ID, and this should return to us. Let me make sure I have this laid out correctly. It should return to us the attachments, which is going to be type iAttachmentInfo. So let's bring that in here. And actually the API should also say that. So this is a promise iAttachment. Okay, let's delete this. iAttachmentInfo. And let's import this iAttachmentInfo. Oh, no. iAttachmentInfo from SP attachments. And this is going to be return the attachments. iAttachmentInfo. Oh, because we didn't put an array. iAttachmentInfo array. What is the problem now? iAttachment file info. iAttachmentInfo. And we can get rid of this one. Okay, so now in use attachments, iAttachmentInfo. This is what we're going to return. And then here we're going to create our hook with a dependency. The dependency obviously is going to be the FAQ ID. And I believe we had use FAQ topic by IDs. So we got to do the same thing as we did here. So here is going to be data, which is going to return the attachments, the mutation, this loading, and the error, and then we're going to use SWR, which is going to require the checking if we have the parameter FAQ ID. And then once we have our data, we're going to return it. Attachments. What is the problem? Oh, it needs to be changed to returning attachment info or undefined. Why is it undefined? Because we're presumably saying that the FAQ item ID could be null, and hence the attachments could be empty if the ID is null. So that's why that is there. We can delete this. All right, so now that we have this hook, we can now leverage this hook inside of our form. So inside of our form, we have to create an attachment display, like a way to display the attachment, because the attachment info right now it's technically not receiving it. But let's go ahead and let's update the form so we can see what it looks like. Yeah, so let me put documentation back in here. Now let's go to the form. So let's go to the form. So the FAQ form, when it loads, we're going to check if there is an attachment on this item, because if there's an attachment on the item, then we need to retrieve the attachment. Because if you remember, when we're doing our call, it does have a true or false on the items themselves to let us know. Let me console it or comment this out. I think it was like the fourth one or the third one. Yep, see, it returns true. So if it returns true, then we should retrieve the attachments. But we can't do conditional. We can't use, or can we? Let me see. Can we use an SWR hook conditionally? Oh, perfect. See, it's gonna, so we just use, which is how we have it set up. We, that's actually the way that it works perfect, because it's what this is basically saying is we cannot conditionally tell it, okay, if the item has an attachment, to retrieve the attachment. Can't do that. But we can't pass null or undefined. And what that's gonna do is in our use attachment by ID, because it is null, then it won't even, if the dependency hasn't been met, the SWR hook does not run. So then we can say, okay, if the user ID, if the user ID is there, then go ahead and retrieve it. If it's not there, then it won't. Because obviously the ID is going to be null. But the user ID. Okay, so how we would do that? Let's go back to our form. And here in our form, we're gonna say if, or let's just say current item FAQ, current item, and current item FAQ dot. Oh, we're gonna have to add that to the app props. in the app props for the FAQ item, I think I can change this to undefined now because I fixed this yesterday. I think. Well, we'll find out. We're gonna add a property called attachments, and this is gonna be a boolean. If current FAQ item dot attachments, then okay, const item ID, which is gonna be a number. If the current FAQ exists and the attachments is true, then we're gonna pass the ID. Otherwise, we'll pass null. So this could be number or null. Or wait, that's what I meant to do. Number or null. And now we can use our SWR hook. So use const equals use attachments by ID, and we can pass out of my item ID. And item ID is going to give us an error because it says you cannot assign null to a number, but we're going to make it to where we can. So here number, it could be null as well. Or let's better yet, let's just say undefined. Undefined, and here we can say undefined. All right, and now here we can use our attachments. Okay, now just out of curiosity, let's console out the attachment, see if we don't get. That way we can get rid of the ESLint error. File undefined resolver parent ID file null are incompatible because in the I remember now here we put nullable. Does that fix it? Well, what is it? File, it could be file or undefined. Can we make it undefined? In yup. How can I make a prop be undefined? Need be. Optional. Okay, we can do that. File dot optional. So now file could be undefined. And what's the problem now? Parent ID file undefined. Oh, attachments is missing. That's correct. So attachments. And this is going to be a boolean. And it's not going to be an option. Attachments. And we have a bool. And this is required. And right here, we're going to put attachments. And by default, it's going to be set to false. And this is going to be set to undefined. That gets rid of that error. Attachments not non-nullable boolean undefined. It can't be undefined. Why is it setting it up to be undefined? Non-nullable boolean undefined. I just need it to be. I wonder if I can just change it and it won't cause any issues. Let's go here. Let's try this. So on the app props, property file is optional in type. Okay, so in app props, can we just make it optional? FAQ item is not assignable because file is optional in type FAQ item, but required in type. What are you saying? That doesn't make any sense. File is optional or undefined. App props file is optional or undefined. That makes no sense at all. File or undefined. It's complaining because file. It could be file or undefined. And on here, it can be file or undefined. What is the problem? Let's see what AI can help us with on this. We fixed the resolver yesterday by putting it as null or file, but then I had to ESLint that line out from the checker. Oops. How can I resolve following error in the resolver now? And then give it the error. And let's change this to ask. Because yesterday we were setting it to null, but when you do things in setting them to null, change from nullable defined in the validation. So let's look at the validation. It's saying we change it from nullable defined on what? What does it mean? We have ID, file, yup, mixed. That's not gonna fix it. That's not gonna fix it. I knew it. Everybody file is optional on a FAQ item, but is required in file undefined. Okay, so it changes there. So now in app props, we can just make it file undefined. Still not working. Now it's saying because it's optional. And then I make it optional. What's the error now? File is optional in type FAQ item, but required in type. File is file or undefined, but it is not optional. Excuse me. I think I'm just gonna change it back to it being file or null. And then just ESLint that one line. And now here, initial file is null. What is the problem now? File undefined. That bowl up here. Attachments are false. No. Boolean undefined is not assignable to non-nullable Boolean undefined. Attachment non-nullable Boolean defined. Let's just change it to Boolean undefined. Do we still have a problem? Attachment Boolean undefined. Attachment is optional. Why would it be on? It's still gonna error out. Let's just say attachment non-nullable Boolean undefined is not assignable to non-nullable. Let me see if this one did it. Let me put it on agent. Help me fix the resolver error. Boolean not working for the attachment property. I think it's gonna do the nullable setting on here. I think you can put nullable, but I'm not sure. But that still didn't fix it, so I don't know. So what did it do? Bool required default false. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Because it is technically in there, so it is a required field. All right, so now we can save all. Go back to our form. Optimistic FAQ has got a problem now in the use add items. So let's go look at use add items. Oh, here we go. So attachments, and let's add a comma here. See if it has another error anywhere else. Okay, no errors. Good. So now we add our questions. We go to general, and I think it was what is the best way. So we're gonna see if our attachments in here. We're gonna go to our tools and close the console. Let's go to our components and let's look at our form. So here in our form, FAQ form, we're gonna have attachment by ID. And it's usually, I think it's probably this anonymous one. No, let's go to the config. Cache. It's not returning anything. And this one does have an attachment. What is the best way to develop? This one is ID 32. Let's go look if this is ID 32. Let's minimize this. And let's look at the ID. The one with the attachment is ID 32. So we are looking at the right one. The hooks for the attachment by ID should be retrieving what we need. Data true. Attachments fetched, undefined. Let's go look at what's loading when we load it. So what we're gonna look is at the FAQ form, and we're gonna check right here. We're gonna stop it right there. So right now item ID is undefined. It's undefined. All right, so now we go, what is the best way to develop things in the web, which is the one we need? ID is still undefined. So what this tells me is it's not loading because this item ID is staying undefined. So I think this needs to be in a use effect. So our form, the FAQ form, we need to put it into this this area right here. And we need to make it the item ID. We need to create it, make it a state, like a local state. Well, because no, that's gonna cause like a bunch of loops. That's gonna be problematic because if we try to retrieve the information, it's gonna cause, it's what the issue is. If we use a use effect and we put the initial current item ID inside of the use effect as a dependency, which we currently technically already have it right here, then it's just gonna cause, I think it's gonna cause one of those endless loop scenarios. I mean, we can try it, but it's probably gonna cause like an infinite loop error. So instead of having item ID as a single property, we're gonna do const item ID set item ID, and then this is gonna be set initially to undefined, and then here if current item, we're gonna put this in the use effect. If current item and current item FAQ set current, or set initial, set item ID, current item dot ID. Otherwise set item ID go undefined, and then we can get rid of this. And here we have a problem. Let's just do a quick fix. I'm thinking maybe we just gotta use if. Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking too. You're gonna have to use if, yeah, to fix that error. Okay, this is fingers crossed, but I'm really thinking, like I said, that this is gonna cause the React minified error when we open the form. So we go to topics, we add our topics, we go to Q&A. What is the best way to develop things on the web? We're gonna take off the breakpoint. Did we get a minified error? No. Interesting. Okay, so I guess my prediction was incorrect. Since we're already inspecting, now we can go to the components. If you're wondering what this is, I every single time that I have these kind of things, I mention it, but it's the React development tools as a Chrome extension. So right now I'm gonna look at the FAQ form, and let's look at attachment by ID. Data is still only returning true. It's returning true. Why? Like it's not. Let's go to sources and let's go to the FAQ API. And let's look at the actual call to get the attachment, which is the bottom. Right here. Get FAQ item by ID. Let's stop it right here. So what is the best way to develop things on the web? It never even hits this get attachment by FAQ item ID. So let's look at our hook, because that's obviously the problem. FAQ. What is our API call? FAQ API. It was down here at the bottom. Get attachments. Is that even in here? Yeah, it's there. Get attachments by FAQ item ID. FAQ attachments by FAQ item ID URL. And we're passing the ID. But it's not even making the call. Why? Go to general, edit, and it never hits our API call. My best guess is that the FAQ form, it's never setting this part. Let's stop it right here and see if it hits anywhere in these. Edit. So it looks like current item FAQ is there. And current item FAQ attachment is undefined. Why? Oh, I know why. Let's go to app props. We didn't add attachments to our return. So FAQ list columns. We have ID, title, answer, parent ID, and we need attachments. And with the old data, e tag by default gets returned, so we don't need that. Yep. So now we should not get that error. Let's refresh. Now we go to topics. We add our topics, go to Q&A. Let's look at our question. And let's inspect it. We go to components. Look at our form component. Components. FAQ form. So why is it not letting me select the FAQ form? I think technology. Topics, add our topics. Expand our question. What is the best way to develop things on the web? Inspect this. Go to our components. Let's look at our my list. Why is it saying my list? I bet you anything I made a mistake on the API. I left it with, yep. Oh man, FAQ list name, not my list. Jeez. You copy things from documentation, don't do things like I do and make sure that you have the correct information there, because otherwise you're gonna get an error like the one that I just got. So now if we go to topics, add them, go to our question answer. What is the best way to develop things on the web? We can get rid of these breakpoints. Start, continue. Let's go to components. Let's look at our FAQ form component. And first of all, let's go look and make sure that our current FAQ has attachment, and it does, so it's true. And now we should be able to go to our state, use attachment by ID. I think it's under anonymous. Under cache. Maybe it's under SWR config. Here it is. Here's our attachment. So here's our file name. So it looks like it's under ref. The only bad thing about these tools is that you have to kind of search around for what you need. So obviously this one was under SWR handler. So we expand the SWR handler. We expand that, and if you scroll down to the bottom under external store, under ref, here's our file. And here's our item ID. Here's our file server relative path. Okay. So if we were to take and duplicate this page and get rid of this, paste that in there, there's our image. Perfect. Now we have to use that URL to retrieve our image. And to show our attachment here. But to show our attachment, we're gonna have to use or have the user delete and add the new attachment, or we can just have them add it, and if one exists, delete it. Let me see what we want to do for that. Okay, so the good thing is we know we're getting our attachments. We didn't have the infinite error. So we're good there. That's good news. But let's try one that doesn't have an attachment. Let's see if that's not erroring out now that I think about it before we move on. So we go to Q&A. Let's go to general and look at one of the questions that why do we use it does not have an attachment. And it says undefined because we're consoling out the stuff. Yep, so it's working. No errors. The only thing, where are we consoling out? This right here. So attachments is attachment info. And attachment is requiring a file type. What does the file type require? Blah, last modified, name. So for the attachment, set file. This is going to give us an error because attachment 0 does not. We're going to pass the object that it needs. So for the file, it's going to need name. And that's going to be attachments 0 dot file name. What else does it need? Size is going to be attachments 0 dot I guess we can just put 0 because it doesn't really matter. It just needs a number, right? So size is going to be it can be 0. What else does it need? Type be attachments 0 dot. What does type need? Type, we're just gonna put unknown. Unknown. What else does it need? What did I? Get rid of this. Set file attachments. If it has the attachments, oh, I see that. Well, wait. Set file is what? Undefined. Yeah. What is the issue? Let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of this. I'm just curious as to what error this gives us. Missing the following. Last modified array buffer bytes and 3 more. We technically don't need to set this. What we do need is the let's just create the attachment view control. That's what we need. We need to be able to view the attachments. And for that, we need to have the attachment control. We need to add a view attachments. Sorry, just making sure my dog is okay. So let's go add that. So in the attachment, here in the attachments, we have attachment control, and we're gonna add a new file. We're gonna call this attachment view control. Yep, attachment view control. And just in case we need styles to be added, new file, attachment view control, attachment view control module SCSS. And we're gonna create a functional component. So import all as React. This will be React functional component. And inside the React functional component, we're going to receive, actually, yeah, inside this, we're going to receive some props, one prop, which is our attachment. So type, the props is going to receive the attachments, which is iAttachment info, not file info. I kept on making that mistake. Attachment info. Let's delete this and bring it in again. Attachment info from, yep, that, very good. Okay. And now this is going to utilize those props. And it's going to leverage the attachments. Okay. So here in the return statement, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're gonna put attachments as a title here, and in the list we're gonna iterate through the attachments and show the attachments. So in an unordered list, let me do this. So let's close our unordered list, and inside of our unordered list, we're gonna map through the attachment. Attachment and we're gonna add a li. The key is gonna be the attachment. Sure, the file name is fine, and then here we're gonna use link from here, from Fluent UI. Let's move this up. Link. And inside of our link, we're gonna put target. It's gonna be underscore blank so that it opens in a different page. We don't want to mess it up to where it doesn't, it opens in the current page and then the user has to reload the whole scenario. So on click, we're gonna open in another window the URL. It's gonna be window.location.origin. So window.location.origin, remember I showed you this? This is the origin. So we're saying get the origin and then append the relative URL. All right. So that's what I'm doing. I want to be able to see the image, and in order to do that, I have to construct the URL. Okay. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take the window, the location origin, and I'm going to append to that the attachment dot server relative URL. Okay. And so what that's going to do is the server relative URL. If you recall, it was this. It's going to append that to this. Because remember, this could be on any site. So we have to make sure that the site stays dynamic. We can change that URL dynamically regardless of what site we're working with. All right. And then once we have that, we're gonna add the rel prop. Rel rel equals no opener, no refer. And then the file name is going to be in the link, and then we're going to close our li. And now our attachment control is there. So now we can go to our form and we can pass attachments to our attachment control. So here's our attachment control. Now we have attachment view control. And to this, we're going to pass the attachments. iFile info undefined is not a, okay, so we have to make sure that it allows it to be undefined. So this, we just add undefined. And here we have to add if attachments exist, then we map through them. All right. So now we save it. And now when we go back to our form, we should now see our attachments in the form. So we go to topics, general, development. We look at the first question, or the one with develop things in the web. And here's our link. Okay. And now for the add an image, we just have to tell the user, hey, if you add an image, this is going to delete it. We could also technically allow them to delete it if they just want to get rid of it altogether. We can put like a little red X to the next to it, which will in effect delete the attachment for you. Because if I click on it, you see it opens my image. That's awesome. I love this. I love it when things come together. That's one of my favorite things about the job of doing development, is that you can actually see the fruit of your work. And as we progressively, it's like playing with Legos. You're just putting a piece of a Lego on top of another, and you start seeing things take form. And to me, that's the single most gratifying thing that I could honestly tell you that I really enjoy about web development. The next thing that we're gonna probably want to add is we have two choices. We can go ahead and start by updating our preview, so that if the image does not exist, then we put a generic image or just a generic message or a generic icon, so that it just shows a generic icon if it doesn't have an image included. And that way the user knows, hey, I need to go to that question and add an attachment. If we have a list layout, an accordion layout, and tab layout, we don't need that. We don't need to retrieve that information. Okay. We only need to retrieve that information if we're using the image layout. And that's why from a efficiency standpoint, I'm glad we did it this way, because we're not retrieving attachments unless we absolutely need them. When do we need them? We need them when we're in the configuration and we're opening the form and the user's going to have to update the attachment or see what the attachment is. We need it then. We don't need it if we're looking at another view that doesn't require it, like these three, and we don't need it if we never open the form. So, and if we do open the form, if we go to the Q question and answer, I'm sorry, I took them off. So if we go to question and answer, and if we don't need it, like this one, why do we use it? The fetch never happens. There's never any attachments there until I add one. So if I add an attachment, let's say I add the same attachment, and then I submit it, why do we use it? Now if I edit it, there's my attachment. If I click on it, there's my attachment. So you see how that works? We're basically building these little blocks, putting them together until we get what we need. Okay. So in a nutshell, that's what I'm gonna leave it tonight. I think tomorrow, when we meet again, I think we can add the additional functionality that I was mentioning. Well, I guess if we want to, we could technically do so right now. Let me see how long that would take us. For delete an attachment, what do we have to write? Oh, we have to get the name. So we would have to pass, we would have to create we would have to create we would have to create a hook for deletion so that it happens instantaneously for us to have optimistic update to remove the attachment. I think that's going to take us about a good 30 minutes. And I think that it'd be beneficial if we keep these short so that you can kind of understand what's going on and how we're doing things. I'm hoping that this is helpful and that you're understanding what it is that we're doing. So really quick, I just want to go over basically what we worked on today. So on the FAQ form, what we did is we added the ability to retrieve an attachment. We created a use attachment by ID functionality. and we created the item ID to be a state within the form itself. Okay. And if the item ID exists, then we're setting it, and that's going to trigger the attachment by ID. If ID is undefined, this hook never caches anything, never pulls anything down from SharePoint. And one good way to see that, if I can show you really quick, is if we go to inspect, if we go to network, if we go to the network tab, I'm going to open this one on that says why do we use it. Let me minimize. So why do we use it? If we click on edit, the attachment files, why did it retrieve it? It doesn't, oh, it does have an attachment. Remember, we added one. Let's go to one that doesn't have an attachment. What is the best way to add a question does not have an attachment. You see that? It didn't request anything because the attachment is not there. Okay? And you saw that one that did have an attachment, like what is the best way to develop things, if we open that one, here's our call. Here's our call that's retrieving the attachment so that we can see it here. And it all happens so fast. But see, you get the efficiencies there because we didn't have to have that redundant call to retrieve the attachment until it's absolutely vitally necessary. Okay? So it's important to always keep that at the top of your mind. How do I make sure that I architecture things to be as efficient as I possibly can? Because when you're building applications, it's all about efficiency. It's all about user experience. And in order for users to have the best user experience, they have to be able to say, you know what, this is a reliable tool. It loads really fast. It doesn't waste a lot of my time. It doesn't constantly crash. It doesn't have a lot of bugs in it because we're writing it both using TypeScript and we're using tools like our data function, our data fetching library, which is SWR, to retrieve our data, and it's only retrieving it when we need it. So in essence, that's the best way that we can, develop things and make sure that we keep at top of mind our users, the people that are going to be leveraging these tools. Okay. So going back to what I was saying, we built this scenario to where it only retrieves the attachments if they're necessary. If the attachment is there, then we built an attachment view control that receives our attachments, shows them in the form of a link so that the user can always view the attachment, go see what it looks like. What is the attachment on here? So that's obviously a beneficial thing to have, and it shows you the file name as well. Okay. So what is the best way to add a question? I deleted that one. Can I add more questions? I edit that one. And if I add an attachment, let's say rename this. Let's rename this to color FAQ. Okay. So we renamed it, and then we select it, we submit it. And what was it? Can I add more questions? I think it was. Yep. And you see the name? We click on it. There's our image. So all in all, like I said, this is what we are aiming for. If it doesn't have an attachment, like testing a new question doesn't have an attachment, we're not going to see anything. We also have to make this conditional to only show if attachments exist. That's a quick fix. The way we do that is inside our FAQ form on the attachment control. For the view, we can say if attachment, then show this. And now we can even change this to take off the undefined, because obviously it's only going to show up if attachments is there, and you'll have no error because you did a check. You checked if attachments existed, and if it existed, then you render this control. So now if I go back to the questions, this one should show attachments. Testing a new question should not. You see the difference? That's why we want to do things like that. And so that's what we worked on today. Tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll continue working on the new layout for the image layout. If it doesn't have an attachment, then we should be showing a generic image. And probably if we have time, we'll work on the hover effect. What else can we do? There's a lot of things that are still left. Um, so we'll have plenty to do. But let's take it 1 hour or 2 hours max at a time, an hour and a half. Today we've been on this for a little bit over an hour. I threw a lot of things your way. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Even if I'm offline, I can address them tomorrow night. If you don't have any questions and this has been beneficial, well, give it a thumbs up. Even if it was bad, give me a thumbs down if you think that I'm royally messing everything up. Don't agree with my development methodologies. I welcome any kind of feedback that you may have, or if I'm confusing you in any way, please let me know. The only other thing that I can think of that we created was the FAQ, the use attachment by ID. A real quick overview of this one before I wrap up is what we created here is a SWR hook. What SWR is it's our data fetching service, what retrieves our information from our backend, from the server. I often like to compare it to like when you go grocery shopping, that's our cart, right? You go grocery shopping, you go down the aisle, you take your cart with you, put things in your cart before you go to the register, and you pay for your items. Same thing here. Your SWR is your cart. You went to the server, you're getting the data, and the cart is holding your data for you. That's what SWR does. And so what we're saying here with this SWR hook is use this as your fetcher, like what the person that goes and gets the stuff from the grocery store. And this is like a resetter. Like if you needed to go get something else, that ID URL is what resets that hook to make it retrieve your data again. And what this hook receives, and this is why it's in a parenthesis, it receives a parameter which is the ID of the item in question. That's why when I open, a specific question, like for instance, if I open, why do we use it? It's going to show me the attachment because I'm passing the ID of this item to it. And it's going to say, okay, let me get the attachment real quick. Okay. Because it has this as a dependency. If the dependency is not received, it passes null and it never gets to this. It never calls the API. That's why when we tested it and we opened it, it never retrieved an attachment because it doesn't exist. We pass null to it. Okay. Anyway, so what this function, what we mean by this quote in the object, this function is retrieving and returning to us the data. What's in the cart? Remember, you sent it out to the grocery store, to the aisles. It's getting everything that you need from the aisles. If we didn't have this scenario, imagine if you went shopping for groceries and you'd have to go get something from the aisle, come back, pay for it. Go get the next thing, come back, pay for it. We're trying to eliminate that by using it. And so SWR becomes our state, what holds our stuff that we're going to ultimately check out from the grocery store, so to speak. I'm just trying to give you an analogy to paint in your mind, okay, this is what's going on. Okay, so it's retrieving the information, which is, in our case, it's our attachments. It's going to return us to let us know, hey, is loading is a way of telling us, hey, I'm in the process of getting what you wanted. Give me a few minutes. I'm loading. I'm doing what you want. Okay. Once I'm done with what you want me to go get, then I'm going to send it back and say, okay, we're good. It returns true. I got the information that you need. Mutate attachment is when you tell it, go get me something else. We're adding something else to the cart. Okay. But what this allows us to do is make it imaginarily, if I could put it that way, like pretend that you're asking it to go get a bottle of soda. It's immediately going to show you the bottle of soda, making it seem like it's there, but it's technically not there. It's technically going to the server, putting it there, and then it's going to retrieve it. And then it updates it. And that's what we mean by optimistic UI. The user immediately sees it in the cart. It's there in an imaginary form. It's still incomplete. It sends it to the server. The server does its thing, adds any additional properties, and returns it to us. And then the think of it as it little by little, it starts turning into an actual soda, right? Because initially we had like the imaginary view of it. And finally, we get the last prop, which is error. If there was an error, let's say there wasn't any sodas, you told it to go get a soda, but there's no sodas. It's gonna say it's an error. There's an error. There's no, I sent it to go get a unicorn. There's no such thing as a unicorn. So it's gonna say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? There's an error. So it retrieves and it returns an error. And you can use all of these parameters to then tell your front end, your page, hey, there's an error retrieving this information, and you can display an error. Okay. And then the use WR hook is actually the method, right? So if you have a picture, the picture has a name, that would be a prop. It wears a uniform that's blue, that's a prop. It throws, right? The picture throws the ball. That's a verb. It's an action. So the use SWR hook, that's your action. And to the action, it's gonna need certain things, right? Just like the baseball player needs a ball to throw the ball. Okay. In this scenario, we're telling it the FAQ item ID is your dependency. If you don't have that in your hand, it's never gonna throw the ball. Okay. So that's why it's right here. It's saying if the FAQ item ID exists, pass the dependencies to it. Give it what it needs. Otherwise, give it null. This null means there's nothing there, and it never goes and gets your data because it was never there to begin with. Okay. If it does have the ID, then it goes and uses the API call, your fetcher function, what actually goes and retrieves your information, what actually goes out to the aisles of the grocery store, returns the items to you. And then ultimately, the last things that this is gonna need is it needs to know what certain properties. There's a lot of properties in this, and I'll go over it in depth in another chat. But one of the most important things for me is suspense. I set it to false in my scenario because I'm not suspending anything while it's loading. If there was a scenario where I had a React component waiting for something to show up, then I would set suspense to true, because that tells React you need to suspend, you need to wait until that information's here, and not continue until it does so. We don't need that in this scenario, but that's what suspense means. And then revalidate on focus means if the user clicks away or walks away from the computer, they come back and they open your form again. Let's say Joe is working on the same form that I am, and he adds an attachment. Well, if you have revalidate on focus, when I come back and I open this form, it's going to revalidate, and bam, my attachment's going to be there. I don't need that in this scenario because this tool is not something that I anticipate that people are going to leverage and use many people at a time. Usually you'll have one content manager that comes in and adds questions and answers, right? So then you want to have that. But if I was building a ticket system tool where multiple people were coming in and updating, we want to keep everybody up to date. So we definitely want, if somebody walks away from the computer and comes back, and they click on the ticket form, I definitely want the information to update. If somebody's already made an update somewhere else, that would be beneficial. So you have to know those things and understand those things so that you can make the wise assessments and make a good determination on what it is that you're going to need and what it is that you don't need. Okay. And basically at the end, what we do is we return what we promised, what we said that this function was going to return, which is this object that includes your data. It includes whether it's loading or not. It includes the ability to mutate it or change it. And then it includes an error if there was one. And that's the last thing that we created in this session. And so just keep those things in mind when you're building these things. And I wanted to make sure that, you learn these things and that I'm as best explaining it to you in layman's terms as I can so that you get a better understanding of how we develop things and how we architecture things to make sure that we get the best user experience. All right. So with that, as I mentioned, I was going to wrap it up, covered everything that we did. I hope you found this beneficial, and thanks for coding with me tonight. And we'll see you the next time. Peace.